Journey of the Beloved, Chapter 2, Mountain of the Moon. Thoth speaks. I behold it, pale as the silk of Jaffa. Moonstruck, it floats like the thousand-petaled lotus in an airy sea. Amidst the starry place therein each pillar doth abide, one matched upon the other as mastiffs of stone, laced with crystal fingers of silvered lightning. Aduljara, mountain of the moon, thou art full of majesty, as the queen of night, whose hair of midnight stars is undone before the king of the sun. Unquote. Is that the ending of the Thoth quote there? Since the days of Lemuria, the mountain of Aduljara, probably didn't pronounce it right in the first place, Aduljara, in the land now known as the Himalayas of Tibet, was considered by many to be the most sacred place on earth. Aduljara means mountain of the moon, for indeed it shone at night as if alive with an inner flame. It later became the inspiration for Mount Meru, the mythic holy mountain at the center of the world. Aduljara no longer exists in this dimension. Like several other places on the earth, it could be said that the mountain of the moon has ascended into another strata of reality. However, from a different perspective, sacred sites such as Aduljara did not ascend, rather the rest of the planet moved away from its glory, fading into lower realms of consciousness. It was in the valley by the same name, nestled in the folds of Mount Aduljara's embrace, that KYI'RA, who would later become Raismes of Aphra, was born. The valley graced Mount Aduljara's yielding lap as a coverlet of emerald and lapis. The weather was much warmer in that region before the time of the Atlantean deluge, and its thick grasses were hardy in the thin air. The valley lay in a volcanic crater at the base of the mountain. Mount Aduljara was the most prominent remaining vestige of a former mountain, by then all mostly vulcanized into ridges circling the crater. In the center of the valley was Lake Nene, named after the goddess Nene, who according to legend cast her mirror down to earth when she could no longer bear to behold her own beauty within it and not share the vision with the world. Just a pause while I retrace my glasses here. Okay. In the Aduljara Valley, dwellings dotted the coves and plains. Sturdy ancestors of the llama grazed the slopes, and beautiful exotic birds pirouetted from branch to branch in the dense groves of migwa trees. In the midst of this thriving existence was a temple city, inclined near the deep cobalt waters of Nene, forming a geometric arc among the terraces of Mount Aduljara. The name of the holy city was Amarana, meaning angel's eye. The sacred geometry of Amarana placed all buildings in a golden mean spiral, with the innermost temple forming a 10-petal lotus in the center of the spiral. Each temple of the lotus represented 100 heartbeats of the universal mother, and thus the 10-petaled temples became the 1,000 petals of her divine flower. Each one of the petal temples held in equipoise its 100 heartbeats in an essence of spirit, which was defined thusly. Now, before I read this, I did create a mandala of this art, and I'm going to find it, pause for a moment, and show it to you. And so this is my mandala diagram. Of course, it's placed in a mandala here, but it gives you a little idea of it. So as you look at this, I'm going to read the 10 petal temples. Pirshana. I'm not saying that correctly. Let me try it again. Pirsahana. Some of these names are almost impossible to pronounce because it's Pirsahana. Pirsahana. There's no A between the H and the N, but you want to put one there. Pirsahana. Blue Temple of Harmony. Ojaveta. Green Temple of Fertility and Abundance. Zeset, Red Temple of Creation. Maija, Yellow Temple of Joy. Ilyu, Violet Temple of Transmutation. Suramuru, White Temple of Purity. Kanef, Temple of Robes, where sacred robes and vestments were not only woven, but special mantras and prayers were chanted into each weave. Iratis, Temple of Wings, communion with angelic beings. Baka, Temple of Mana, creation of sacred ceremony with prima matra, or the first pure essence matter, the white gold powder of the alchemists. Vishinu, Temple of the Eternal Flame, service to an eternal flame lit from the flame brought from Orion by the Sunbow clan. Representing the heart of the blossom were two more temples in the very center of the lotus. They were the temple of the sun, golden, and the temple of the moon, silver. Now, before I continue, in the Thoth video series, I have portions of some of this that I read and show some more images. It's really more activational. I'm speaking here of the particular temples and all of that. Just thought I'd mention it because after you've read this book, you might want to go back to the Thoth series. Outside the golden spiral of Amurana, high on a precipice of Mount Ajuhara, was the Palace of Acara. I use the word palace not in the standard sense of an elaborate royal dwelling. It was the home and spiritual center of the oracle of the mountain, Usmonji. You will read more about this great sage in the next chapter, but let us now explore the Palace of Acara, which would be the major retreat and nurturing vessel for Tirna in his youth. Acara was made of crystalline stone, which had been alchemically transformed. That is, its structure had been atomically rearranged. It was still stone, and yet it vibrated at a greater rate of light resonance. The stones of Acara gave off a soft rose-white glow. When struck, even with a light wooden stick, a tone was released from the power of the stone. Within the heights of its mountain perch, Acara was played like a harp by the enchantment of the winds, so sweetly in faint heart song that the listener almost felt rather than heard the tender songs. The whole of the palace was built as a labyrinth spiral, much along the lines of the famous labyrinth design within Chartres Cathedral in France. Despite its maze-like form, there were many orifices for light and air, even in the innermost chambers, that could be adjusted at various levels of circulation. Within the crystal stone palace, the chambers were simply decorated in a style that today, oops, I'm so sorry, let's just pause for a moment, the kitty problem. Apologies again. If I close my cats out of this room, they'll scratch on the door. So this is how I have to do it. In any case, I'm going to start again with that paragraph describing the palace. Within the crystal stone palace, the chambers were simply decorated in a style that today might resemble a composition of Tibetan American Indian, and Greek. It was then known as a prominent Tuzumche setting. Again, I'm struggling with these pronunciations. Tungzhe was the name of a culture that inhabited the mountain reaches of what is now India and Tibet. They were the racial mix of several star races, Atlantean, and more ancient strains of Lemurian. I'm using the term Lemurian in this book because people recognize it, but Thoth does not recognize it. He says that's a later name for it after it was long dead and gone, that Muruvian would be the proper words. In the center of Acara, above the innermost chamber, was a small spherical room with a light skylight opening as a window to the stars. In this room burned a perpetual flame, which, like the blaze in the temple of the eternal flame, had been lit by the fire of the sunbow clan from Orion. While the flame in the temple in Amarana was for the people, the smaller one at Acara was for the most sacred of ceremonies and soul journeying. The inner spiritual being of KYI'RA, and later Raismes of Aphra, would gain strength and purpose through his wedding to this flame. All eternal flames lit by the fire from Orion were known as Izmami, I-Z-M-A-M-I, Izmami, the light of immortality. Just above Acara was a great stone table of the same transmuted rock, upon which sacred ceremonies of sun, moon, and stars were conducted. It was upon this altar place of the sun, the Sunis Aphra, that the babe KYI'RA would be dedicated and later in manhood be named Mouth of the Sun of the altar place, Raismes of Aphra. From Acara there was a slender path that led further up the mountain past the Sunis Aphra, ending at the summit. Few people trod the path to the top, for it was a treacherous climb, with snow and windy gales year-round. However, just below the summit was a cavern opening. Only high initiates of the sun and moon entered this holy cave, dedicated to the sacred marriage of the solar and lunar attributes in mankind. The cavern was known as the Cave of Messara. Messara was an archetype or god power of the sun and moon. Centuries later, Messara would become singularly a solar being, given the name of Mithras. Such archetypal god powers as Messara, Mithras, are genuine energies which have been either enhanced or entirely created through the repetition of focus from many minds. These thought entities can either be sacred or profane. Some of the most ancient ones, created by minds of divine ordinance, are especially close to the holy thought in the mind of God. The Cave of Messara was a mythic portal for Raismes of Aphra in his final initiations at Acara. Ajuhara, mountain of the moon, keeper of the altar of the sun, shone from an inner light manifested through ages of focused harmonics within its innermost reaches. Deep inside the mount was a cathedral chamber, a combination of natural and man-made shaping. This was the chamber of the holy tone, where singers of both male and female created perpetual choirs, harmonically designed to permeate and surround the mountain and valley with an aura of light and power. The perpetual choirs and work of the many temples greatly aided the spiritual dynamic of the entire planetary grid. This, then, was the birthplace of KYI'RA. Here he would grow into manhood, and as Raismes receive the ordination of an illuminary, a master of the order of the illumined. And I have as a notation, the order of the illumined or illuminaris was a spiritual world order having been established in the pre-Adamic age of the Sunbow clan. All sacred orders and religions on earth and within the sacred hallow, inner earth, stem from and are precipitated by the illuminaris. And when we speak of all sacred orders and religions, of course our religions have become so watered down. They really started long ago with a pure intent and focus, and they were well received on the planet to help individuals reattune to their inner sacred being. However, as we all know, time did a number on it, and a lot of erosion took place. And so, this is the end of chapter 2